All right, win editor Tristan Warner back here, joined by special guest Bill Bassett. Bill, obviously the father of Bo Bassett and also his high school coach at Bishop McCort High School in Johnstown, Pennsylvania. We talked to Bo earlier. He is the recipient of the 2026 Junior Dan Hodge Trophy, an extremely prestigious award given to the top and most dominant high school wrestler. Bill, let's start with what went through your mind and how do you feel when you found out Bo was named the recipient of the Junior Dan Hodge Trophy?
Yeah, I think it was very exciting. It was exciting for Bo, but also for our whole family. I mean, there's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears went into Bo's high school career.
Yep.
From his brothers helping him out to his teammates to his coaches. Even to my wife. I mean, she does a phenomenal job just with all the stuff that she does for the boys. So it was great to see. I mean, I know for the last few years that's been something that's been on his radar. I mean, it's definitely a prestigious trophy. He's done an awful lot in his high school career, and I know that was the last box to check for him. And I know he's been trying to get it the last 2 years. I mean, he really put himself up there. I know he was close those 2 years, and this year it was another hard one with the Rainey brothers and Drayshawn Ross, and there's a lot of really good guys out there. Even his brother Melvin had a phenomenal year. I mean, so for him to get it was definitely something that he's been shooting for, and I know at the next level he's going to be going for the big one, for the big prize. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Talk a little bit about, if you would, just what the Junior Dan Hodge Trophy represents. Really, like I was telling Bo, domination, obviously, top high school wrestler, and also just confidence level of what his trajectory is going to be. What kind of things do you and him have in mind as goals and expectations, not just for college wrestling, but for beyond that?
Yeah, I think the plan and I guess the goals are always going to be the same. Bo goes out there with a high pace to try to score as many points as he can, no matter who he's wrestling, whether it's a high school kid, a college kid, a senior level kid. I think the goals are always the same. Score as many points as you can and be as dominant as you can. So I think moving forward, I think the goal is just to try to do the best he can in every single match and put himself in the best situation to potentially win an NCAA title and go undefeated and have his name up there for the next Dan Hodge, the big one. So I think that's the goal. I know that this is very prestigious. To win it, to be the best high school wrestler is pretty phenomenal, especially in the United States. There's so many really good ones.
Yeah, absolutely. It's every year it's a tough decision. This year there was definitely some really good kids that we discussed were like any other year these guys could have won for sure. But talking a little bit about the way Bo wrestles, he wrestles uniquely, just intense and aggressive, and in a sport where, and I said this to him too, in a sport where you can easily get a lead and coast through and get a decision or whatever it may be. How were you able, as his dad and also one of his lifelong coaches, how were you able to instill in him from a young age just that that tenacity that he has, but also that that mindset that you can push yourself past your tiredness level and keep scoring, keep dominating, never stop scoring, really is the best way to describe it.
Yeah, sure. I mean, Bo, he definitely has a high pace. He has a style to, like I said, to push every single second. And I think that there's been a lot of really good coaches in his life that we've all been saying the same message to all the guys, just not Bo. I mean, Jax wrestles the same way.
Yep. Keegan
wrestles the same way. Melvin wrestles the same way. So, they all do it a little bit differently, but they all wrestle every second of every match. So I think that, that's just been a whole bunch of all of us as coaches, just, always putting it in our minds, like if there's a second on a clock, you're pushing. Every second you're doing something, you're pushing a pace. You're faking, you're snapping, changing levels, changing directions, just constantly looking to score points. And it's also fun. I think that they have a lot of fun doing that. And then it was very unique to have Bo, Jax, Melvin, all those guys on the same team, because then it got really, I don't want to say competitive, because it was never a negative competitiveness, but it was always just they're trying to outdo each other with who can get the fastest techs and who can score the most points. And it really became fun to watch because they're always I mean, they've pushed all of each other to the next level. They really have. And, so it's been really fun to watch. But I think it goes back to like when Bo was younger. I mean, his whole goal was to wrestle like Spencer Lee and Austin DeSanto and guys like that. And then, next few years, and, he was around a lot of really good role models growing up. So that was always my goal as a dad, was to put him around as many great coaches and as many good role models as I could. And I was very selective on who he was around, but, it definitely worked out because he was around some good ones.
Yeah, and that leads me into another question. I wanted to ask, how much of an impact did Jody and Young Guns have on Bo? I remember you telling me at one point he was at, the Giant Center at 9 months old in a Young Guns onesie. I know he kind of grew up in the program. But, to be fortunate enough to be a couple miles down the road from arguably one of the best clubs in the entire country that's, been that way for the last 2 decades or so, how impactful was it for him to grow up in that club?
It was huge. I mean, it was honestly probably one of the biggest, attributes to Bo's career has been Coach Jody and Coach John. I mean, John's another one that kind of, sometimes doesn't, get as seen as much as Jody, but, both Strip Matter brothers are phenomenal. They both had huge impacts on Bo. Jody's been in everything with Bo, so he'll be in a corner this weekend at the U.S. Open with me, and, he was at all the Who's Number Ones. I mean, he's been everywhere. I mean, he was even out at RAF. So, so the Strip Matter boys, Young Guns, have been phenomenal. Not only, just with the technique and just the mindset, but it's just them. They're just great people. And not only that, but, just the people that have come before Bo in the Young Guns system. I always say, like, Young Guns doesn't rebuild, they just reload. They reload with the young kids looking up to the older guys. And then, I can remember when Bo was one of the youngest guys in the room, and very, I'm big on consistency and just hard work and just grinding. And, so Bo was around when Spencer Lee was in high school, and Jason Nolf and all those guys. And those guys are really, really good to him. And, and I would always remind him, like, someday that's, that if you work hard, that could be you. And I think that's why Bo takes such a big role in trying to be a good role model for the younger guys, because he had so many good ones. So it's kind of cool. Not only did he become a good wrestler in Young Guns, but he became a really good person, through being around good people.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, he's a tremendous kid and a great ambassador for the sport, and we talked a little bit about that in his interview. And, one thing I wanted to ask you, and I think I've kind of touched on this with you before, but I think, in my role at Win, I interview a ton of coaches all the time at all levels, and one thing that I hear a lot from them is, everybody seems to have a different approach to coaching their own son from the time that they're little all the way up through. I've gotten comments like, oh, I can't coach my own kids, and then I've got the opposite, guys similar to you who have coached their kids their whole life. How have you been able to navigate that path of not only just being your son's, and I say plural, not just Bo, all of your son's coaches from the time they were little, but also being able to, I guess, instill such a deep love for the sport where it's not like you're pushing them and they don't want to do it, but they do it to please dad. It really, talking to all three of them, they genuinely like eat, sleep, and breathe wrestling. It's like their whole life, and they absolutely love it. So how have you been able, even from the time they were little, been able to, it just impresses me that they love the sport so much and have achieved so much, and it just seems like they genuinely love it.
Yeah, I think that the first thing that I did was, I think just getting them to love it. That was the first thing, is planting a seed, getting them to love it, getting them around, like I said, as many good people as I could. And in that process, I was very fortunate to be able to pick, like Spencer Lee's dad's brain and Nico Magaludis' dad. And there's been a lot of good dads where I've, talked to them. I'm a student of the sport just like they are. I'm always trying to learn and evolve from not only being a parent, but a dad, a teacher, a coach, a husband. So I'm always trying to learn. So I was very fortunate. So as Bo was coming up through, learning from different people and mentors, I was doing the same. So, like, to me personally, though, like, it's always been, like, I try to keep it fun. We try to keep it into, like, a family. We do everything as a family. Like, my wife's 100% on board. She loves it. And we get it all the time. Like, oh, my gosh, you guys are traveling again for wrestling. But we wouldn't have it any other way. Like, to us, that's the most quality time you can get. And I mean, we did it a lot as a group and as a family. I mean, the boys have taken us to 11 different countries wrestling, and I mean, more than likely, we probably wouldn't have been in those countries if it wasn't for wrestling. So we're very grateful for all those opportunities. And, at the end of the day, I mean, my boys and I are extremely close. and wrestling will never ever, ever, I guess, get in the middle of that. Like to me, it's about being a good dad, but then whenever, it's time to be the coach, it's time to be the coach. We're able to separate that. And the other thing is our gyms are pretty close to our house, so we don't have the long car rides. So if they don't have a good practice, when it's done in a room, it's done in a room, and when we get home, it's father son time, and just hanging out. So I think that was probably the thing that I had to navigate the most, was just being able to separate the two. And I'm also a high school teacher, so I have all the wrestlers in my classes too. So I'm juggling a few hats there, but I wouldn't change it for anything. I enjoy it. I'm actually, Bo's leaving in a few months, and I'm super excited for him to go down to Blacksburg and do his thing. And I'm going to continue to coach and continue to hopefully produce some tough kids, and get them into college, and just keep my thing going, and just watch Bo and the boys and his brothers do their thing. So it's going to be fun.
Yeah, definitely a new chapter for you guys. I was kind of joking with you at NCAA as I was saying this is the last time you guys can all sit there as a group, just purely as spectators and fans. How do you expect that season to look a little different next year with, trying to coach two of your boys and your whole squad there in the high school season? And then obviously there's probably going to be some dates that conflict and stuff. Like, you've probably never missed one of Bo's matches before. Is that something you've mentally prepared for yet?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something we've been talking about. We know that, it's going to create a lot of hustle on our part, but, we're willing to do it. Like, if we have to leave the, PIAA states and drive the ACCs, we're going to do it, I mean, wherever it's at, we're going to do what we can. And the things that we can't, I mean, we're...
Hopefully not Stanford.
Well, yeah, I heard it's Pitt this year and Stanford next year, so that will be Melvin's first year. So, but if I can happen, if I can jump on a plane and get there, even if it's for a day, I'm willing to do that. So
that's amazing.
And that's the thing. Like with as the boys were coming up through, there was times where Keegan and Melvin would be at middle school states and Bo would be at high school regionals, and we just made it happen. I mean, as they get older, it's we're blessed to be able to watch them on TV if we need to, and I think they're all in a position now where, God, I'm so happy that they're probably all going to end up going to the same spot, which is good. But if they all wanted to go to 3 different spots, we were okay with it. My wife and I were just going to have a lot of frequent flyer miles and do our thing. So
rack up the miles.
Yeah,
that's funny. Yeah, so wanted to touch on that topic as well. Obviously, Bo's recruiting journey was a little different, but ultimately settled and found the place that's right for him, which is amazing. But wanted to ask you, as a dad and as a coach, how was obviously that was your first time going through it as a dad, and you'll have that, you had that with Melvin and now with Keegan eventually. But what was that like for you, trying to navigate that situation as a dad and as a coach? And also, I'm sure you had your opinions, but you kind of also wanted to let him choose, where he felt was right for him.
Yeah, I think ultimately, I mean, it was amazing. I mean, it honestly was. I mean, any parents who say that it's this and that, I mean, personally, we enjoyed every second of it. Again, it was just weekends where we got to spend together and we got to meet so many amazing coaches and programs. And honestly, it was probably one of the toughest decisions that Bo had to make and we had to make as a family. I mean, there were so many good options. I mean, at the end, I mean, man, he could have went to about 5 or 6 different schools, and I think he would have done extremely well. Yeah. I think, though, God had a plan the entire time for Virginia Tech, and I think that God's calling Bo and my other two to Virginia Tech for more than just wrestling. I truly believe that, and we're not sure what what that is yet, but I think that it's bigger than just wrestling. I think that they have a unique opportunity to really take that program and make it something special, and I think that's what that's why they're there. I think that it's going to be really, really amazing. I think that the coaches down there are phenomenal people, but there were so many other coaches that were phenomenal, but we kept getting pulled to them. I think, it's very, very similar to what we have at Bishop McCort. I mean, they're really strong with their faith. I think that they're really big into family and really big into hanging out and building relationships. And Bo's a relationship guy. He's really big on, really getting to know his coaches and, being able to, he's I always been saying it since he was about 10 years old that Bo's about 20 years older mentally than he is, his age. He'd much rather sit there and talk to the coaches than he would the wrestlers. He gets along with those, with I don't know. He's always been more mature. So I just think I just think that he really mixes well with those guys, and it's gonna be fun. I think it's gonna be fun. It's far enough away to where he can go out and spread his wings, but it's close enough that if we need to get there, we can get there. So it was definitely it's a good fit.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, he's going to do big things. There's no doubt about that. Last question I wanted to ask you, and I kind of poked some fun at Bo with this one too. So there's only been one set of brothers, I believe, that's ever won the Junior Dan Hodge Trophy, and that's Chris and Mark Perry. But I did tell him there's never been 3 sets of brothers that have won. So what will it take for, and he already has it mapped out, Melvin next year, Keegan the next year. What will it take for those guys to, obviously they've already had outstanding high school careers and world titles and stuff like that, but what will it take for them to get one of these to add to the Bassett family trophy case?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, part of the plan, and it's part of the goals, and it's going to take a lot of hard work, obviously, but I definitely think that they're capable of doing it, no doubt. We wrestle on purpose. We wrestle one of the hardest schedules that physically I could put together, not only in the season, but in the preseason, in the postseason. I mean, U.S. Open, Super 32, and then right into Ironman, stuff like that. So I think that, they got the stage to prove that, they are the best wrestler, the most dominant wrestler with that schedule. I think that a lot of kids have dominating seasons, but they don't wrestle this, necessarily the schedule that, some wrestlers get to. So, yeah, a lot of hard work, and I guess it's up to you guys and God and the season they put together, but they're going to be going for it, I can guarantee you.
Awesome. Well, Bill, thank you so much for your time. Best of luck to you guys going forward, both McCort as a program and all the Bassets and Melvin. We thank you again for your time, and again, huge, tremendous accomplishment for Bo to win the Junior Hodge, and we'll let you go, but thanks again, and congratulations to you guys.
Hey, thank you so much.
Yep, thanks.
See ya.